I'm glad to be here. What you've accomplished in this county is remarkable, and I think is a signal of what we're going to accomplish across this country in 2012. Our number one goal is to win so big in 2012 that everybody understands that 2010 was the beginning, not the peak. We need to pick up at least 40 more seats in the U.S. House, at least a dozen seats in the U.S. Senate. We need to win the governorship in North Carolina. Remember, if we're going to have a 10th Amendment implementation bill to return power to the states, we want to have conservatives in government in the states who return power to the people. We don't want to have liberals who then grab all of it and make the state as bad as Washington used to be. And finally, of course, we have to win the presidency. But just as Ronald Reagan owed a great deal of his success to Jimmy Carter, and if you've seen the movie Callista and I did on Rendezvous with Destiny about Ronald Reagan's life, there's a very brief segment that has Carter in there just to remind you how much he helped. So I think the scale of the Republican victory in 2012 will owe a great deal to President Barack Obama. Now, no president in my lifetime has worked as hard to make it clear why we need a new president. We have a serious problem in our economy. We have a serious problem with the price of gasoline. We have an enormous $2 trillion deficit. We have conflict in Libya. We have a challenge in Japan. And the spectator-in-chief shares with us his Final Four pick and then goes to Brazil to kick a soccer ball. Now, I actually think we need a president who would like to be president. And some of this is personality and the fact that, enthusiastic, well-meaning amateurs find it very hard to learn at the level of the presidency on the job. But part of it is fundamental differences about the nature of the world. Let me give you a couple of examples. President Obama goes to Brazil, and he says, and we're going to do a YouTube on this in the near future that you will love. He says, "I'm so glad you're drilling offshore." And of course, the U.S. government has given $2 billion in loan guarantees to the Brazilians to be able to buy the equipment to drill offshore. And then the president says, "We really want to be your customer." Now, I just want to give you a conservative, pro-American alternative. Imagine you went to Brazil and said, "Isn't it terrific that we're drilling offshore even more than you are?" And for that matter, drilling onshore, the development in shale gas. We've gone from 10 years supply to over 100 years supply in natural gas in the last 10 years because of technology. We now can find gas we couldn't find. Imagine the president went to Brazil and said, "It is terrific that we're giving American companies precisely the same breaks to get equipment for work in the U.S. that we were giving you, and therefore our companies are not at a disadvantage in competing with you." And imagine an American president went to Brazil and said, "Hi, we would like you to be our customers so we could make money and have jobs selling to you." You know, the Obama model of the economy is that we borrow money from the Chinese so we can give it to the Brazilians with no American jobs in between. That's not sustainable. I mean, it's bad enough when your 13-year-old uses the family credit card and doesn't realize that there's this second phase called payment. But to have a president of the United States who doesn't understand this is really very sobering. But consider the second example he's given us in the last few weeks. Whatever you think of the Libyan engagement, and I'll talk about it in a minute, imagine an American president who says to you, "I have the authority of the United Nations and the Arab League." Now, I was intrigued because I'm a historian by training, and I've written a number of books on the American founding fathers, 2 novels on Washington, a book called Rediscovering God in America about the Declaration and the Constitution. So I went back and checked in the Constitution. I couldn't find the Arab League. I mean, since he's a Harvard Law graduate and was, he's the editor of the Harvard Law Review. He's a very smart man. I'm really hoping that he will sort of share with the nation what clause has the Arab League in it, or what clause has the United Nations in it. I mean, American presidents consult with the United States Congress and then do what is in the sovereign interest of the United States. We don't worry about a collection of dictators who get together randomly to tell us whether or not they approve of what we're doing. Now, I want to talk about the 3 large areas in which I think we want to focus on drawing a contrast between how we would lead America and how we would solve problems as a Republican Party and what President Obama is doing. I'm going to talk about values. I want to talk about the economy, jobs, and energy. And I'm going to talk about national security. Let's talk about values first, because that's really where it starts. We pledged allegiance to the flag. We talked about one nation under God, which is the phrase which comes from Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, which Lincoln personally wrote in by hand as he was sitting on the platform looking out at the First National Military Cemetery in November of 1863. Part of what got me back into public life was when the Ninth Circuit Court ruled that saying one nation under God as a pledge in public school was unconstitutional. I thought that was such a historically ignorant and fundamentally anti-American decision that required an intellectual response. So I wrote a little book called Rediscovering God in America. And the entire book's just historic. It's not theological, it's not religious, it's historic. And it starts with the following facts. And I think facts matter. Lincoln once said that if a man can assert that 2 + 2 equals anything but 4, and you can't get him to quit doing it, you can't possibly win the argument because facts have no meaning. And so I think facts really matter. It is a fact that if you go to the National Archive, you can see the original Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence is a political document. It's not a theological document. It explained why we were breaking with Great Britain. It begins by saying we hold these truths to be self-evident. The word truth is important here. The Founding Fathers were not out there with a philosophy. They were not out there with an ideology. They were sincerely trying to figure out the truth of how people can govern themselves. They said we're all created equal, and we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, this is the most extraordinary moment in American history, because here you have a group of people who've gathered together who say the power comes from God to each one of you personally. You're personally sovereign. That's why America is exceptional. It's not because we're bigger, stronger. It's because we are the one society in history which says power actually resides in the citizen as a grant from God. The citizen is sovereign, and the citizen loans power to the state. The state does not loan power to the citizen. The Founding Fathers thought they were codifying rights which were pre-existing. That is, they weren't rights that came out of the Continental Congress. They weren't rights that came out of the Constitution. If you read the Second Amendment, it basically says the right to bear arms. It stipulates it already exists. It's not being recognized by the state. The job of the state is not to infringe on it. You have a right to religious liberty. And of course, the 10th Amendment comes from a deliberate effort to keep Washington small by saying that all powers not expressly given to the federal government belong to the states and the people thereof.